the genocide that haunts Turkiye to this day. Sayfo. Imagine being the governor of an Ottoman province and a 3-word order comes from the top saying, burn, demolish, kill. Now, imagine this happening in the larger context of ethnic cleansing, resettlement and massacres. A war rages on around the globe. Meanwhile, you're surrounded by burning villages. You watch death marches go by, and you face the most dreadful and desperate choice in your entire life. Obey or become another statistic. What would you do? In 2021, US President Joe Biden paid tribute to 1.5 million Armenians who lost their lives to the genocide perpetrated by the Ottoman Empire. The occasion? Armenian Remembrance Day. The response? Swift and aggressive. Turkiye's Recep Tayyip Erdogan was quick to respond. The US president had made baseless, unjust and untrue remarks. He then went on to detract attention from the issue by mentioning the US genocide of Native Americans. The Armenian genocide is a hot-button topic. Only 34 countries in the world recognize it, and whoever tries to join that group is faced with a stern diplomatic warning by the Turks. But 2 more genocides rile Turkiye's leaders just the same, but remain largely forgotten. The Ottoman genocides against Greeks and Assyrians. Origins and a history of persecution. The Assyrians comprise one of the most historically important ethnic groups in Mesopotamian history. The Assyrians share the Aramaic family of languages and trace their lineage to ancient Assyrians and Babylonians, among other Mesopotamian groups. They started converting to Christianity as early as the 1st century CE, and by the early 20th century, they were spread across modern-day Iraq, Syria, Turkey, and Iran. They had 3 major churches: the Assyrian Orthodox Church of the East, the West Syriac Orthodox Church, and the Chaldean Catholic Church. But they were not politically unified. However, the Ottomans still deemed them a threat and decided to get rid of them. This was not a novel idea to the Ottomans, who had previously allowed Kurdish chieftain Bedir Khan Beg to commence a Muslim holy war against the Assyrian Christians in the Hakkari mountains. The Kurds massacred 10,000 Assyrians, razed their villages, and enslaved hundreds. By the late 19th century, Sultan Abdul Hamid II had assembled Hamidai, a paramilitary Kurdish force, to wreak havoc on Armenian and Assyrian Christians in the empire. They were promised immunity from prosecution, Ottoman motives, and the start of a tragedy. The Turkish authorities let the Turkish raiders rain hell on the Christian populace, and whenever they could, perpetrated similar acts themselves. You might be asking, why? What were their motives? Well, during the First World War, the Ottomans believed that the Assyrians, Armenian Syriac, and Greek Christians would side with the Allied forces, particularly Russia, where orthodoxy prevailed. This suspicion arrived at the heels of their defeat in the Balkan Wars, when Muslim refugees from that area were returning and needed space for rehabilitation. It was a time when the empire was declining, forcing it to look inward. Many Ottomans professed the need for ethno-religious unity, and the leading intellectuals of the time openly started calling for it. Do you know what the unity of a singular group implies? The exclusion of others. The triumvirate of the 3 pashas who held the strings to the empire set out to erase the fragile sectors of the population, the gullible Christians who were sensitive to foreign manipulation. A war's on. As the Great War commenced, Talat Pasha, the Minister of the Interior at the time, asked the Turkish authorities to push out Assyrians from the southeastern parts of the empire, deporting and resettling them. The locals were led on death marches with no knowledge of their destinations. Many starved to death, and those who did reach their destinations did not find resettlement camps to be the most hospitable environment. As the authorities kept rounding up villagers, the Assyrians started fleeing into Iran. When they finally started supporting the rival Russians out of desperation, The empire was quick to blame them for their losses in Azerbaijan. In the early days of the Ottoman occupation of Azerbaijan, massacres, rapes and arsons against civilian population multiplied in rural areas. The Assyrians could not escape the wrath of Kurd tribes and Ottoman troops. Helal Bey, even the Assyrians and Armenians in the Ottoman army were ordered to be executed. By the numbers. This is Midyat, a district of modern-day Turkey and previously part of the Diyarbekir Vilayet province of the Ottoman Empire. It was the only Ottoman town where the Assyrians were the majority. Moving outward from the town, there was a healthy Christian population, especially Syriac. This region is known as Tur Abdin and served as the historical boundary between the Roman and Sasanian empires. Hence, Christian communities have been living here for quite some time, in settlements like Mardin, Urfa, Harput, and Adıyaman. The Syriac Orthodox communities had formerly thrived, and nearby Hakkari mountains were home to tribes of Assyrian Christians, as were the Vilayets to the east, Bitlis and Van. All of these regions came under attack by the Ottomans. The Blue Book, a historical document, explains how Syrian or Assyrian village in Urmia, all the men were hauled over to the cemetery to be murdered, while the women and girls were treated barbarously. The estimated death toll was around 8,500. Around 1/5 of the 30,000 Assyrians living in Urmia and surrounding villages died. The town of Salmas saw the massacre of around 800 Christians. In Neo-Aramaic, the language now spoken by the locals, they call the entire tragedy Seyfo, a word that directly translates as sword, but long has been synonymous with extinction. If there's any silver lining to this historical tale, it has to be the tales of Assyrian resistance in Tur Abdin. They held tight in the small town of Azak, repelling oncoming forces for multiple months, and in the end, snuck out with Ottoman weapons. Then there was the town of Ayan Ludo, where a few thousand Assyrians defended against an onslaught of a much larger Ottoman Kurdish coalition, forcing them to withdraw their forces. Tur Abdin remained home to many Assyrians over the decades, even in modern-day Turkey. But now they are struggling to preserve their identity amid an ever-encroaching urban landscape. But these moments of resilience pale when measured against the weight of atrocities committed by the empire. Take Jevdet Bey, for instance, whose tales of cruelty belay any reprieve. Into the Hakkari Mountains. Take Jevdet Bey, who had helped Enver Pasha's special organization coordinate defenses against the Russians around Lake Urmia near the Iranian border. He assembled Christian men under the pretense of food distribution in the Van Vilayet adjacent to the Persian borders in 1915, only to execute them. But since the war machine had to save its bullets, they killed them with farming tools. As the Assyrians fled Jevdet's butcher battalion, they took shelter in the Hakkari Mountains. They pleaded with him to stop the madness and begged the Russians for aid, both hopeless pursuits. Meanwhile, Jevdet collaborated with a Kurdish chieftain to lead the attack against the Christians, raining down artillery shells and burning villages left and right. This was said to be retaliation for the refusal to join the ranks. The Kurdish Tribes. The Ottomans had provided weapons to the Kurds in this region in the Russo-Turkish War. Political power grows out of the barrel of a gun, as they say. So the Kurds increased their influence across these lands. In 1908, a Kurdish emir expelled 12,000 Assyrians from their home, forcing the Patriarch of the Assyrian Church of the East to negotiate with the Russians. Fast forward to June 1915, and a new Patriarch of the Assyrian Church of the East was hiding with the Assyrians in the mountains. The Patriarch, who'd told his fellow Assyrians last year to fulfill strictly their duties to the Turks, was now leading them in this difficult situation. With little reprieve from either side, he left on a dangerous trek to Russia with several other Assyrians. Between the arduous journey and the Ottomans on their heels, They lost thousands of people. Around 30,000 made it to Russia. Mehmed Reshid in the Diyarbekir Vilayet. But 30,000 is a drop in the ocean when one looks at the atrocities committed by Mehmed Reshid, the governor of Diyarbekir Vilayet. He organized massive raids and ransacked houses, churches, and official buildings, accusing the Christians of hiding weapons. A lot of the criminals were taken prisoner and were told that they would be relocated to Mosul. They were led to boats and executed. And this happened amid the random looting and killing that went on in Diyarbekir. Historians estimate that Mehmed Reshid was directly or indirectly responsible for the killing of 144,000 to 157,000 ethnic minorities. His massacres were so extreme that Talat Pasha wrote to him, urging that he keep his cool and kill just the Armenians, not the Assyrians. All is revealed. By the end of 1915, the ethnic cleansing project was almost done. Most of the killing was done by local militias, especially the Kurds. Persecution of minorities through official and unofficial channels continued until the end of the war. It was only after the fall of the Ottoman Empire that the breadth of violence and brutality committed in these provinces came out. An Assyro-Chaldean delegation to the Paris Peace Conference in 1919 put the death toll close to 250,000. Many more had been displaced, so much so that only 1/3 of the pre-war Assyrian population was accounted for after the war. The death toll increased in modern estimates, as most of the unaccounted people never showed up again. One interesting person did show up during the Allied occupation of Istanbul, Mehmed Reshid. He was arrested and his role in the genocide was exposed. However, he managed to escape prison and was cornered by authorities when he committed suicide. As for Cevdet Bey, some people claim he was assassinated during Operation Nemesis, the Armenian revenge for the genocide, but other sources claim otherwise. Denial prevails 100 years later. Today, the Assyrian minorities in Turkey have well and truly shrunk. Take Tur Abdin, which boasted a 40% Assyrian populace even after the war. Now, that number has fallen to 10%. The Assyrian Genocide remains a much avoided topic. The media shies away from it, and people are quick to forget just how monstrous the Ottoman war machine really was. Even today, revisionists like Erdogan threaten anyone who mentions it or try to downplay its historical significance. Turkey is at odds with its history. It'll have to face up to these truths sooner or later. If you like this video, hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel for more content and let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'll see you in the next one.